That necklace was buried with my son. Evelyn Hartwell's voice cut through the falling snow, and every person beneath the hotel awning turned toward the homeless black man standing 10 feet away. Marcus Reed did not answer. He only drew his thin coat more tightly around his 8-year-old daughter, Maya, who was shivering beside him in worn sneakers and a purple knit cap. Behind Evelyn, the glass entrance of the Hartwell Grand glowed with warm golden light, while photographers gathered near the curb after the Billionaire CEO's annual memorial gala. 3 years had passed since Evelyn's only son, Daniel, died, yet the silver compass pendant hanging from Marcus's neck was unmistakable. She had given it to Daniel on his 18th birthday. A tiny scratch crossed its left edge from the summer he dropped it on the family dock. No photograph had ever shown that mark. No replica could have carried it. A hotel security guard stepped between them. "Sir, you need to move along." Marcus lowered his eyes to Maya and carefully tied the lace that had come loose on her right shoe. His fingers were stiff from the cold, but his movements remained patient. "Almost done, baby," he murmured. The guard reached toward Marcus's shoulder, then stopped when Evelyn lifted one hand. She moved closer, the heels of her black boots pressing into an inch of fresh snow. "Where did you get that?" Marcus rose slowly. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and exhausted in a way expensive clothes could never hide or imitate. His beard was uneven, his coat had been repaired at one sleeve, and a faded backpack rested against the stone wall behind him. Nothing about him matched the man Evelyn expected to possess the last thing her son had worn. "We should go," Marcus told Maya. Evelyn's expression tightened. "You are not leaving with my son's necklace." Maya slipped her small hand into her father's. Marcus looked past Evelyn toward the cameras, the hotel staff, and Richard Cole, Hartwell Industries' chief financial officer, who had just stepped through the revolving doors. Richard's face remained composed, but his eyes fixed on the pendant with sudden recognition. Marcus noticed. So did no one else. "Mr. Reed," Richard said, as though the name had escaped him before he could stop it. Evelyn turned sharply. "You know him?" Richard recovered with a practiced smile. "Only from an old company matter. Security should call the police." Maya moved closer to Marcus. "Daddy, did we do something wrong?" He looked down at her, and the tension in his face softened. "No, sweetheart. Being cold and having nowhere to sleep are not crimes." Then he unclasped the necklace and held it in his open palm, but when Richard stepped forward, Marcus closed his fingers around it. "Not him," Marcus said. Evelyn stared at him. "My son died wearing that necklace." "No," Marcus replied quietly. "He died after giving it to me." The snow seemed to silence the entire street. Evelyn's breath caught, but Marcus's next words carried no anger, only warning. "And if you open it tonight, Mrs. Hartwell, your son may die a second time." That morning, Marcus Reed woke before sunrise in a room that was not really a room at all. It was the back corner of a small weekly motel on the south side, where the heater rattled every few minutes and cold air slipped through the window frame. Maya was still asleep beneath 2 thin blankets, one hand resting on the faded purple backpack she carried everywhere. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed and counted the money in his wallet twice, even though the amount did not change. $23. The motel manager had already given him until 9 o'clock to pay for another night. By 8:30, Marcus had packed their clothes, folded the blankets, and made the bed exactly as he had found it. Maya watched him from the doorway while eating the last granola bar. "Are we going somewhere better?" she asked. Marcus smiled as he zipped the backpack. "We are going somewhere warmer." He did not tell her that he had no address in mind. Outside, the wind pushed loose snow along the parking lot in white ribbons. They walked nearly a mile to a warehouse where Marcus had applied for an overnight loading job. The supervisor met him in the lobby, glanced at the computer screen, then looked at Marcus with the cautious expression he had seen many times before. "Your background check came back," the man said. "There are some concerns." Marcus already knew the words that would follow. Theft of company information, workplace intimidation, financial misconduct. None of it had ever been proven, but the accusations lived in databases that traveled faster than the truth. "I can explain every item," Marcus said. The supervisor lowered his voice. "I am sure you can, but corporate has a policy." Marcus thanked him anyway. He always thanked people in front of Maya, even when their decisions left them standing in the cold. They spent the afternoon at a public library, where Maya drew pictures while Marcus searched for temporary work. At 4:15, a librarian brought him an envelope that had been left at the front desk. No return address. Inside was a single card with 6 typed words. Hartwell Memorial Gala. Tonight. Bring the necklace. Marcus read it twice, then folded it into his pocket. For 3 years, he had avoided anything connected to Hartwell Industries. Every call had ended. Every letter had disappeared. Every person who promised to listen had suddenly changed their mind. Maya looked up from her drawing. Is it bad news? I do not know yet. She pointed toward the silver chain beneath his shirt. Is it about that? Marcus covered the pendant with his hand. He had considered selling it more than once. A jeweler had once offered enough money for 2 months of rent, but Marcus had walked away. The necklace was not his property. It was a promise, and promises did not become less important because they became inconvenient. By evening, Maya was tired and hungry, but Marcus led her toward the Hartwell Grand because the message might be their last chance to reach Evelyn Hartwell directly. He had no invitation, no lawyer, and no proof anyone wanted to see. He had only the necklace, a frightened child, and a truth powerful people had spent 3 years trying to bury. The closer Marcus and Maya came to the Hartwell Grand, the more the city seemed to divide itself into 2 different worlds. On one side of the avenue, black cars rolled beneath heated awnings while guests in tailored coats stepped onto clean sidewalks. On the other, Marcus held Maya's hand and guided her around patches of ice, carrying everything they owned in one faded backpack. She tried not to complain, but he could feel her small fingers tightening around his whenever the wind cut between the buildings. How much farther? She asked. 3 blocks. You said that 2 blocks ago. Marcus glanced down at her and managed a tired smile. Then we are making excellent progress. She smiled back, and for a few seconds the cold seemed less important. They stopped inside a 24-hour diner where Marcus spent $6 on tomato soup and 2 slices of toast. He told Maya he had eaten at the library. She knew he was lying, but she pushed 1 slice across the table anyway. I am full, she said. You only had 3 bites. They were big bites. Marcus broke the toast in half and gave 1 piece back to her. It was a quiet bargain between them, the kind they had made many times without naming it. While Maya warmed her hands around the soup bowl, she opened her drawing notebook. On one page was a picture of Marcus wearing a bright safety vest beside a blond man in a gray suit. Behind them stood a tall building covered in scaffolding. You never finished telling me about him, she said. Marcus looked at the drawing. Daniel Hartwell had been smiling in the photograph Maya used as a reference, though Marcus remembered that day differently. 3 years earlier, Marcus had been the senior safety supervisor on a Hartwell housing project near the lake. He had found inspection reports altered, cheaper materials approved, and warnings removed from the official record. When he reported it, Daniel accused him of trying to embarrass the company. Their first conversation ended with Daniel walking away and Marcus wondering how a man born into so much power could be so unwilling to see what was directly in front of him. But Daniel came back 2 weeks later. He had checked the records himself. He had found the same names, the same missing invoices, and the same signatures leading toward Richard Cole. After that, the 2 men met in parking garages, empty job trailers, and once in the back booth of that very diner. Daniel apologized without excuses. Marcus respected him for that. On the final night, Daniel was supposed to bring everything to Evelyn. He never reached her. Marcus remembered flashing lights reflected on wet pavement, Daniel struggling to stay conscious, and the silver compass pressed into his palm. He remembered Daniel saying Evelyn's name. He remembered promising something he had not yet been able to finish. Was he your friend? Maya asked. Marcus closed the notebook carefully. He was trying to become one. Maya studied his face. Did he do something bad? Marcus looked through the diner window, toward the hotel lights in the distance. He made a mistake, he said. Then he tried to make it right. Maya nodded as if that answer made perfect sense. Marcus wished the rest of the world understood goodness that way, not as never failing, but as what a person chose after the failure. He paid the check, helped Maya into her coat, and touched the hidden pendant beneath his shirt. Tonight, he would either keep his promise or lose the last chance he had to prove why it mattered. Inside the Hartwell Grand, the temperature changed so quickly that Maya's glasses fogged at the edges. Marcus removed her knit cap and brushed melting snow from her shoulders while 2 security officers stood near the door, watching as if kindness itself required supervision. Evelyn led them through the lobby without speaking. Guests from the memorial gala turned to stare at Marcus's worn coat and Maya's faded backpack, then looked away with the careful politeness people used when they did not want to admit they were curious. Richard Cole followed several steps behind, speaking quietly into his phone. Marcus noticed the way Richard kept glancing at the necklace in his hand. He had seen that look before. It was not grief. It was calculation. The security room was on the lower level, past a service hallway and a locked glass door. One wall held 6 camera screens. Another displayed a framed photograph of Daniel beside Evelyn at the opening of the hotel. Maya looked at the photograph, then at the drawing notebook tucked under her arm. "That is him," she whispered. Evelyn heard her. "You knew my son?" Maya looked to Marcus. Before answering, "Daddy did." Richard pulled out a chair for Evelyn and remained standing beside her like a trusted advisor. "We should keep the child out of this," he said. Marcus helped Maya into a chair near the door. "She stays where I can see her." Richard gave a small, patient smile. "You are not in a position to make demands." Marcus met his eyes. A father does not need permission to protect his daughter. The room became quiet. Evelyn placed the necklace on the table between them. "Tell me exactly how you got it." Marcus looked at Daniel's photograph. 3 years had changed Evelyn's face, but not the way she held herself. She still appeared to believe that control could keep grief from touching her. "Your son placed it in my hand," Marcus said. He was still conscious. He knew who I was. Richard tapped the table once with his finger. "That is impossible. Daniel never mentioned you." "He mentioned me to you." Richard's expression did not move, but his shoulders stiffened. Evelyn noticed. "What does that mean?" Instead of answering, Richard opened a file on the security computer. A grainy video appeared on the largest screen. It showed Marcus outside a Hartwell construction trailer 3 years earlier, speaking sharply to Daniel. There was no sound. Daniel pointed toward the parking lot. Marcus stepped closer. The clip ended before either man walked away. Richard folded his arms. This was recorded 6 hours before Daniel's accident. Mr. Reed had been suspended after threatening to expose confidential company records. He confronted Daniel at the site, and later that night Daniel died. Maya stared at the screen. Marcus felt her eyes turn toward him. Evelyn's voice lowered. "Did you threaten my son?" "I warned him." "About what?" "About trusting the wrong man." Richard leaned forward. "He means me, of course. That has been his story from the beginning." Evelyn looked back at Marcus. "Did Daniel give you the necklace? Or did you take it after he was gone?" Marcus did not answer immediately. He remembered Daniel's hand closing around his, the rain against the pavement, and the promise that had cost him nearly everything. "Both answers would hurt you," he said at last. "Neither answer would be the whole truth." Maya shifted in her chair. "Daddy almost threw it in the river once." Marcus turned toward her. "Maya." Her face fell. "I am sorry." Evelyn stared at him with new suspicion. "Why would you destroy the only thing connecting you to my son?" Marcus looked at Richard, who was now standing perfectly still. "Because some evidence keeps people alive," Marcus said. "And some evidence tells dangerous men exactly where to look." Richard's gaze shifted toward the locked door, then back to Marcus. "That is a serious accusation," he said. "One you have never been able to prove." Before Marcus could answer, the door opened, and a woman in a dark wool coat stepped inside. She was in her mid-40s, with tired eyes and the measured posture of someone who had learned not to trust first impressions. "Detective Laura Bennett," she said, showing her badge. "I was told Daniel Hartwell's necklace had surfaced." Evelyn rose. "You handle my son's case." "I reviewed it after the original investigation was closed." Bennett looked at Marcus, then at the pendant on the table. "Mr. Reed contacted my office twice, 3 years ago. Both times, his statements disappeared from the file before they reached me." Richard gave a faint sigh. "Detective, this man has a documented history of misconduct." Bennett placed a folder on the table. "That history is exactly what concerns me." She opened it to a series of employment records, banking notices, and property documents. Every page carried Marcus's name. Theft of confidential information, threatening behavior, suspicious financial transfers, termination for cause. Evelyn scanned the documents quickly, her expression hardening with each page. "You were fired by my company," she said. "I was removed after I reported falsified safety inspections." Richard shook his head. "You were dismissed after attempting to extort the company." Marcus remained calm, but Maya could see the tension in his jaw. Ask him why the account used for those transfers was opened 2 days after Daniel died. Bennett turned a page toward Evelyn. That account was created using Mr. Reed's employee records. He never withdrew $1 from it. Richard leaned back. That proves nothing. No, Bennett said. But this might. She placed a second document on the table. At the bottom was Evelyn's signature. She looked at it, then stopped breathing for a moment. The order authorized Marcus's termination, froze his benefits, and removed him from the company housing program. Another page transferred oversight of the internal investigation directly to Richard. I signed these, Evelyn whispered. You were grieving, Richard said gently. I handled what needed to be handled. Marcus looked at her, not with anger, but with a weariness deeper than accusation. 3 weeks after that signature, Maya and I lost our apartment. Evelyn lifted her eyes. I did not know. You did not know my name, Marcus said. But your signature knew my address. The words settled over the room. Maya lowered her head, tracing the edge of her notebook with one finger. Evelyn looked at the child's worn shoes, then at Marcus's repaired sleeve, and for the first time she saw more than a stranger holding her son's necklace. She saw the reach of a decision she had never bothered to question. Richard stepped closer to her. This is emotional manipulation. We should let security handle it. Bennett closed the folder. No one is leaving yet. Marcus glanced at the clock above the camera screens. It was nearly 10. Maya had been awake since before sunrise. My daughter needs food and a safe place to sleep, he said. Richard's voice softened. Sign a statement admitting you took the necklace, and I can arrange both. Marcus looked at Maya. She was frightened, exhausted, and still watching him as though his next choice would teach her something permanent. He turned back to Richard. You can take my job, my home, and my name off every door in this city, he said. You will not make my daughter watch me sign a lie. Detective Bennett studied Richard for a long moment, then turned toward the security officer near the door. Bring Helen Brooks upstairs, she said. Richard's expression changed so slightly that Evelyn might have missed it if she had not already begun watching him differently. Helen retired 2 years ago, he said. She also kept copies, Bennett replied. 15 minutes later, an older woman entered the room holding a brown envelope against her chest. Helen Brooks had once served as Daniel's executive assistant. Evelyn remembered her as quiet, careful, and almost invisible during board meetings. Tonight, Helen looked frightened, but not uncertain. Her eyes found Marcus first. I am sorry, she said. Marcus nodded once. You were scared. I still am. Richard stepped forward. Helen, you should speak with company counsel before making any statement. Bennett moved between them. She is speaking to me. Helen placed the envelope on the table. Inside was a letter written in Daniel's handwriting and dated 4 days before his death. Evelyn recognized the sharp slant of every line. Her fingers trembled as she read. Daniel admitted that Marcus had warned him about altered inspection records months earlier. He also admitted that he had not believed him. Daniel had forwarded Marcus's complaint to Richard, thinking the company's chief financial officer would investigate quietly. Instead, Marcus's identity had been exposed. His work history began collapsing within days. Daniel caused this, Evelyn whispered. Marcus looked at the floor. Not alone. You knew? He told me. Evelyn stared at him. Then why did you protect his reputation? Marcus glanced toward Maya, who had fallen asleep in the chair with her cheek against the backpack. Because one bad decision was not the whole of your son. Helen reached into the envelope and removed a second page. Daniel had written that he found proof Marcus was telling the truth. He intended to expose the fraud, restore Marcus's name, and confront Richard before the next board meeting. At the bottom, one sentence had been underlined twice. If anything happens to me, the compass must reach my mother, but only when she is ready to know that I failed before I tried to make it right. Evelyn lowered the letter. The anger in her face had given way to something heavier. That is what you meant outside. Marcus nodded. You spent 3 years believing Daniel died as the man you wanted him to be. The necklace holds the part that comes. After that belief, Richard gave a quiet laugh, but no one joined him. A letter can be forged. Helen looked directly at him. Then you will not mind explaining why Daniel ordered a private audit of the Lakeshore project the day before he died. Bennett's attention sharpened. There was no audit in the case file. Because it never reached the board, Helen said. Richard canceled it. Evelyn turned slowly toward him. Richard did not answer. Marcus crossed the room and gently lifted Maya's notebook from her sleeping hands before it could fall. A folded piece of paper slipped from between the pages. Helen saw it and went pale. Daniel gave you that too? Marcus picked it up without opening it. He gave it to Maya. Evelyn looked at the child. Why would my son give something to her? Marcus's voice softened. Because he knew adults could be pressured. He thought a child's drawing might be overlooked. He opened Maya's notebook to a page covered with a compass, for stars, and a sequence of small colored dots. Evelyn leaned closer. What is that? Marcus looked at the necklace resting between them. The reason I never opened it. Before Marcus could explain, Richard's phone vibrated against the table. He looked at the screen, declined the call, then slipped the device into his pocket. Detective Bennett noticed the movement. Who was that? She asked. Company counsel, Richard replied. They are concerned about a child being held in a room during a criminal inquiry. The words sounded reasonable, which made Marcus distrust them even more. A minute later, 2 county child welfare workers appeared at the door with another security officer. One of them held a folder bearing Marcus's name. Mr. Reed, she said. We received an emergency report claiming Maya may have been taken from her legal guardian and exposed to unsafe living conditions. Marcus turned toward Richard. You did this. Richard's face remained calm. I made sure the child was protected. Maya woke at the sound of her name and sat up quickly. Daddy. Marcus crossed the room and knelt in front of her. Look at me, baby. You have done nothing wrong. The social worker opened the folder. Until we verify custody and housing, we may need to place her somewhere safe for the night. Maya grabbed Marcus's coat with both hands. I am safe with him. Marcus wanted to protest, but he saw fear rising in her face and forced his voice to remain steady. They can move us apart, he said softly. They cannot change who your father is. Evelyn watched him, and something in her expression broke. She turned on Richard. Withdraw the report. I cannot withdraw a county investigation. You created it. I responded to a risk. Detective Bennett stepped toward the social worker. The child is not leaving until I confirm the source of the complaint. Richard's composure tightened. Detective, the man has no permanent address. That is not proof of neglect. Maya held her notebook against her chest, then looked at Evelyn. My dad said I should give this to you if people try to take me away. Marcus looked at her in surprise. Maya, when did I say that? You did not. Mr. Daniel did. The room went still. She opened the notebook to the drawing of the compass and handed it to Evelyn. He showed me the pattern when I was little. He said rich people hide things in places poor people are not allowed to touch. So he hid this where nobody would think to look. Evelyn traced the 4 stars and colored dots. Richard moved toward the table. Give me the necklace. His voice was sharper now. Detective Bennett blocked him. Why? Richard caught himself too late. Because it contains company property. No one had said the necklace contained anything. Evelyn looked at him slowly. How do you know that? Richard's eyes moved from the pendant to the door. Helen took 1 step backward. Marcus lifted Maya into his arms and held her close. Bennett reached for the necklace, but Evelyn placed her hand over it first. No, she said. My son left it for me. Maya pointed to the first blue dot in her drawing. Turn the compass east, then north, then west twice. Evelyn followed the pattern. A faint click came from inside the silver casing. Richard's face lost its careful calm. Do not open that, he said. Marcus looked at him across the table. You were right about one thing, he said. The truth is dangerous. Just not to the people you planned. Evelyn lifted the silver casing with both hands. Inside, fitted beneath the compass face, was a storage chip no larger than a fingernail. Detective Bennett connected it to the security computer while Richard stood near the door, saying nothing. The first file opened with Daniel sitting alone in his office. He looked tired, but his voice was steady. Mom, if you are watching this, then Marcus kept his promise. Believe him before you believe anyone who tells you he wanted money. Evelyn covered her mouth. Daniel continued. He admitted that Marcus had warned him about falsified safety records and that he had dismissed the warning too quickly. He named Richard as the executive who approved false inspections, redirected company funds, and pressured families to leave properties Hartwell Industries wanted to acquire. Then a second file appeared. It showed Daniel meeting Marcus in an empty job trailer. Daniel apologized for exposing his identity and placed a folder on the table between them. Marcus did not accept money. He asked only that the unsafe housing project be stopped before families moved in. Evelyn looked at Marcus, who still held Maya against his chest. He had been telling the truth from the beginning. The final recording came from Daniel's phone on the night of his death. His voice was weak but clear enough to understand. Marcus was beside him, telling him to stay awake, promising help was coming. There was no panic in Marcus's voice, only patience. Daniel pressed the necklace into his hand. "Do not give this to the company," he said. "Give it to my mother when she is ready to see all of me." Marcus answered, "You can tell her yourself." Daniel gave a tired smile. "Then keep it until I can." The recording ended. No one in the room moved. Evelyn lowered her head, and for several seconds she was not a billionaire or a chief executive. She was simply a mother hearing her son's voice after 3 years of silence. Detective Bennett opened the remaining files. They contained financial transfers, altered reports, internal messages, and approvals traced to Richard's accounts. One message discussed creating a false misconduct record under Marcus's name. Another referenced disabling a scheduled vehicle inspection before Daniel's final trip. Richard finally spoke. "You do not understand the context." Bennett closed the laptop. "You will have the opportunity to explain it with counsel present." The officers escorted him from the room without spectacle. Evelyn did not watch him leave. Her eyes remained on Marcus. "You saved my son," she said. Marcus looked down at Maya. "I stayed with him, and I destroyed your life." "Your signature helped," he said quietly. "Other people made choices too." Evelyn's voice trembled. "Tell me what you want." Marcus set Maya gently back into the chair and faced her. "I want every family pushed out by those projects to get their homes or fair compensation. I want the workers who reported problems to have their records cleared. I want my name restored so my daughter does not grow up believing truth only matters when rich people approve it." Evelyn nodded through tears. "And for you?" Marcus glanced at the worn backpack beside Maya's feet. "The same thing I asked for 3 years ago. A fair chance to work, a safe place for my child, and no reward that requires me to pretend this was only about us." Evelyn looked at the necklace on the table. Daniel had trusted Marcus with the truth because Marcus had stayed when everyone else ran. Now, at last, she understood why. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the kitchen of a small brick house on the south side, while morning sunlight stretched across the floor. The house had 2 bedrooms, a narrow backyard, and a front step Maya had already covered with purple chalk drawings. It was not a gift from Evelyn. Marcus had purchased it with the settlement Hartwell Industries owed him after an independent investigation cleared his name, restored his lost wages, and confirmed that the accusations against him had been manufactured. On the refrigerator, Maya had taped the first perfect score she had earned at her new school. Beneath it was a note in her careful handwriting that read, "Home is where nobody can make us leave before breakfast." Marcus read it every morning. He now directed an independent safety and housing program created to protect workers who reported misconduct and families displaced by corporate development. He had accepted the position only after the board agreed that the program would operate outside Hartwell Industries and publish every investigation publicly. More than 40 families had already received fair compensation or the option to return to restored homes. Former employees had their records corrected. Helen Brooks testified before the board and later joined the program as its records director. Detective Bennett reopened Daniel's case, and Richard Cole faced formal charges based on the evidence inside the Compass. Evelyn stepped down as chief executive while the company rebuilt its oversight system. She did not disappear into private comfort. She attended every public hearing, answered questions without excuses, and admitted that grief had not erased her responsibility. On the first anniversary of the truth coming to light, Evelyn met Marcus and Maya at the Daniel Hartwell Community Center, a renovated building where single parents could receive temporary housing support, childcare, and job training without being treated like failures. She carried the silver necklace in a plain wooden box. "This belongs with you," she told Marcus. He looked at the compass, then shook his head. "Daniel gave it to me for a reason. That reason is finished." Maya opened the box and studied the tiny scratch along the edge. "Can we put it next to his picture?" she asked. Evelyn nodded. Together, they placed it inside a glass case beneath a photograph of Daniel wearing a construction helmet and laughing beside a group of neighborhood children. The plaque below did not describe him as perfect. It said he had failed to listen, learned the cost of that failure, and chose to tell the truth. Maya stood quietly before the photograph. "Was he a good man?" she asked. Marcus looked at Evelyn before answering. He made a bad choice, he said. Then he spent the rest of his life trying to make it right. That is what made him good. Evelyn closed her eyes as tears reached her cheeks. This time, she did not hide them. Marcus placed a hand on Maya's shoulder, and the three of them remained there for a moment, joined not by money or loss, but by the truth they had finally chosen to carry together. Outside, the last snow of winter had begun to melt along the sidewalk. Maya took her father's hand as they stepped into the afternoon light. "Are we going home now?" she asked. Marcus looked toward their car, then down at the daughter who had trusted him when the whole world had not. "Yes, baby," he said. "We are going home."